We have such a shortage of physicians in the country. We're all feeling it.
It's a problem for patients.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get care. It's a problem for hospitals and health systems. They have shortages of
Mm-hmm.
resource. And it's a problem for physicians because the application process is incredibly cumbersome.
Having a professional network of senior women executives is particularly important. Why that was so important to you. And
The organization has some kind of principles, and one of them is who mentors the mentors.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really good question. Sometimes there's no one to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to find those people to help you, as you said, through the good times and the bad times.
This is Inspiring Women. I'm Laurie McGraw, and today I am speaking with Lori Prestesater. And Lori Prestesater, she is a friend. She is someone I've admired for many years before we worked together. I knew her as a senior executive of many companies that she grew, that she helped make successful. And then I asked her to come join me at the American Medical Association. She was there for 8 years. She just finished her time there as a senior executive. She is the senior vice president of health solutions. Lori, thank you for being on Inspiring Women.
Well, thank you for having me.
Here we go. So it took a little bit of convincing to get Lori to join me here on Inspiring Women. She doesn't like to talk about herself, but she has done a lot over many years, serving both the industry and healthcare, but also her many years at the AMA. Lori, I want to wind the clock back a little bit. So you've built companies, you've run P&Ls, you've been working with payers, you've been working with provider groups, you've been working with high-tech companies, high growth. That's an exciting space. There's a lot to do there. And then you came over to the American Medical Association. Most people don't know a lot about the AMA. They know it's a powerful organization, but they don't know. What made you make the leap?
Well, it's a good question, right? Most people don't think of the AMA as a high growth, exciting opportunity. Uh, um, but it really was a great opportunity. And I made the decision because it seemed like an opportunity, when you presented it to me, that I could take my experience over many years and go to an organization who was trying to start kind of going through a transition and really have an impact in healthcare.
One of the things, just sharing some of that background in different companies, when we knew each other over many years. So Lori and I would spend a lot of time just talking about business problems that we were working on at companies. I got a lot of advice from Lori over many years. But I know when I joined the American Medical Association, I was not really sure what the organization was about. I am personally very proud of having worked with the association. A 175 years. I mean, it's an amazing, amazing, powerful organization. And I loved my time there, which I viewed as the time of just taking, I don't know, a dusty old iconic organization and modernizing it with modern practices and modern infrastructure. You took that work and did something very, very different in the association. Can you just talk about the work that you did while you were at the AMA?
Sure, I would love to. And I view my time at the AMA truly as the pinnacle of my career. It was the honor of a lifetime to work with the people I got to work with and to help the organization transition as I did. So a time I'm really proud of, and I wouldn't have expected. Right. I wouldn't have expected. And I learned a lot. And I think you and I share this. One of the things that I think I know is that in order to stay relevant, you have to keep learning.
hmm
And I can't remember a time that I learned as much as I did as I was at the AMA from a number of different perspectives. But one of them was that I got to take the work that you had done, and transform it to the next level. I would say we took what was a traditional publishing organization. We put out books and we put out codes and data format and transition it to a data company or a data organization,
hmm
one that we were able to make really relevant and provide additional value to the industry using kind of old, as you said, old and
hmm
dusty assets, and moving them to modern technologies. and modern thinking.
I remember, Lori, just when I joined the AMA, I was just stunned at, like the amount of, again, data
Mhm,
access,
mhm,
access to brilliant physicians,
mhm.
access to, amazing scientists, and just coming from a commercial world and coming to building companies, coming to the association and not that the people that work there and who are so terrific and just dedicated to the association, I don't think they had a real world understanding of just what they were working with. And so I just would love for like those first impressions coming from many high growth companies to the AMA. What were your first impressions when you joined the association?
Well, it's a unique. They had a unique perspective. I think if we build it, they will come. Not a good perspective on what does the market need, what value can we bring outside of the standard things we provide. The AMA provides, curates, manages, and distributes the CPT code set,
Mhm.
which we've done for many, many years.
Which is the
And
backbone for revenue cycle, which is the
correct,
backbone
that's
for,
correct,
describing medicine, procedures, things of the
right.
like.
And as medicine transitions, not only does that process and those codes need to transition, but the way in which that data is used has
Mhm,
an opportunity to transition. And so taking the codes and the other assets that the AMA has and making them um, available when you need them, where you need them in modern technologies. And when you add AI and all of the opportunity that adds, it puts this in a just really a kind of a unique position to provide really important, relevant guidance and reference data at the point that it can add value to those who need it.
which are commercial organizations, provider organizations, health systems,
Yeah.
pharma. I mean, the entire industry uses that data. Let's talk about that data transformation because when you do something like that, you have to work nimbly, you have to work fast, and those aren't, I would just say, natural motions in an organization like the AMA. So how did you get a data transformation? That's a pretty big deal to happen? Where did you start? What systems did you use? Who did you count on? And was it all done within the association? Did you work with partners?
Uh, Great question. So, yes to everything. The biggest challenge is actually not the technology from my experience. It's in the change management and the cultural change that has to happen. So it had to happen both in Health Solutions, which is the team that I had responsibility for, but it also needs to go beyond that to those parts of the organization
Mhm,
that um, you need to influence
mhm.
and bring along by influence as opposed to your authority to bring them along.
Mhm.
And in the AMA, it's even, as you know, it's even more interesting because a lot of the work is done by these terrific volunteer physicians who are passionate and committed and
And
super
expert,
smart,
so
so smart.
expert. Yeah.
Um, and all of these things have to come together to move things along. That's not to say that a lot of the work isn't technology work.
Yep.
And, I was fortunate to have and to be able to grow this terrific data labs team.
Mhm.
Um, and a shout out to Sandeep Damali, who runs that team. Sandeep, I miss you. I'm gone. He's still there running things, but to move us forward in really terrific ways, and frankly, that have not just set Health Solutions, but he's built the platform for Health Solutions and potentially the rest of the AMA to take the data assets to a new level.
Lori, for the skills that you brought, so you
Mhm.
certainly brought strategic thinking, business thinking. You understand sort of like how to grow a business and everything else. And in an association, a nonprofit organization that has just a responsibility
Yep.
to the industry, what are the business skills? What are the leadership skills that were most valuable to you from other parts of your career that you brought to the challenges that you led and worked through at the AMA?
I would say one of the biggest is taking the complex and making it simple.
Mhm.
Um, And I think that that is a skill I probably undervalued in
Hmm.
earlier in my career, but I think it's a very valuable skill. And in this scenario, it continued to be valuable because the AMA is very complex.
Hmm.
And being able to figure out how to take both complex problems and complex organizations and simplify them in a way that can move forward. One of the really important things about the AMA is our mission focus.
Hmm.
And so ensuring that
And
all
what
the
is that mission, Lori? The art and
and science
science
of
of medicine
medicine
for the betterment
of
of
public
public health.
so to ensure that all the work we're doing is supporting the mission of the AMA and the
Yep.
mission of healthcare.
Right. That was always primary. And I will say, it took me a while to learn that. I mean, it's not natural to be in a position of just a historical positions of a growth mindset to putting mission first and still the responsibility of putting out whether it's the code set or whether it's
Right.
physician data, used for things important things like credentialing and the like.
Yeah.
Lori, when you talk about that data
Mhm.
transformation in health solutions, I know that you did a lot with the CPT code set, but I thought that there were other
Yeah.
pretty major projects and data transformations that you led as well.
So I would put them into two kind of categories. And the one is actually not the CPT code set, but the educational content around the CPT code set, which we're the team is getting ready to release in at a broad level. But CPT AMA CPT Intelligence will be a new offering that is available to anyone in the marketplace, and it really will, I believe, provide great value to the industry and further establish the AMA as the authoritative source of coding guidance.
How will that help with AI? Everything's AI these
Mhm.
days. So how will it support like innovation in that area?
So it will be powered by AI.
Oh wow.
Okay. And so, it is sitting in a private large language model.
Hmm.
And all of our content has now been tagged and using some graph database technology that my friend Sandeep could further describe, um, but which will allow us to allow the AMA to present coding guidance in a relevant fashion at the point it's needed. So
Hmm.
it will retrieve all of the pertinent guidance around a conversationally asked question and support autonomous coders. It'll
Hmm.
support EHRs. It'll support
Hmm.
um, payers as everyone's favorite topic. It will support some of the prior authorization. We believe it'll simplify and support prior authorization. So it will really provide kind of a broad basis to the industry as another tool to be more efficient.
Lori, I know that you and I could geek out on sort of like, the codes and the undercover underpinnings of, what is in this data transformation because it's fascinating. I know that I found it fascinating and what you transformed sounds even more so. But can you maybe talk about some of the impact? Because one of the great things that the AMA has been so consistently focused on is burden to physicians.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of it, between, things that they've been asked to do, burnout and the like. How did the work that you led and brought to the industry, how did that help with some of those other issues?
So probably the work that most significantly will impact that is in the area of credentialing.
Hmm.
And so the AMA launched a new product during my tenure called Veracree. And Veracree really is an integrated set of data to streamline that credentialing process. It's historically been very burdensome for physicians. And the AMA is frankly uniquely positioned to provide primary source data and to work with industry to streamline that process. So, it's been in the market for less than 2 years, and I'm pretty proud. I believe we have just under 150 individual customers deployed at just under 700 different locations. So, really great adoption, and our customers are reporting as much as 30% reduction in time as they
As they
make that
bring physicians
process.
on board. I mean,
That's
and it's like,
correct.
I just like, again, I learned this, working with you, L'Oreal. It's like, I mean, it's sometimes like months. If we have such a shortage of physicians in the country, and the AIM has been reporting on this for years, and we're all feeling it. I mean, I was talking to somebody about just in San Francisco, you would expect a tremendous amount of access to physicians, 6 months to get an appointment with a primary care physician. So we have not enough resources in terms of physician resources to be available to people. But then even when you hire them, the act of getting them on
Right.
board is weeks. And so that's a pretty big impact.
It is a big impact. And it's a problem for everyone, right?
Mhm.
It's a problem for patients.
Mhm.
They can't get care. It's a problem for hospitals and health systems. They, have, frankly, shortages of
Mhm.
resource. And it's a problem for physicians because the application process is incredibly cumbersome.
Mhm.
And so, I think movement in that direction of eliminating that burden is exactly the work that the AMA should be doing, and it will continue. They're making great progress, and they'll continue to move that forward.
Well, it sounds like you've left it in a great place. Lori, I want to sort of move the conversation. First of all, it's sort of fun to talk about the work at the American Medical Association, and pretty much everyone like Lori, there's just a level of pride in terms of the work, and also because of the impact that you can have with it. And it sounds like tremendous impact, and you should be very proud of it. I want to talk about transitions. It's hard to leave a very big position. It's hard to leave one and know that that work will be carried forward by somebody else. How are you doing with it, Lori?
I am fortunate because I'm very, very comfortable and confident in the gentleman who's taken the reins from me, Jeremy Knight.
Hmm.
I actually think he's far better suited than I was to take it
Oh,
to
come
the
on.
next level. I think we have seasons, right?
Hmm.
And so I am proud of the work I've done. I am also very proud of the work I know they're going to do, and I think Jeremy is exactly the right individual to take that forward. So I will admit I still talk to the team a bit, and I think everything's going well. I'm it's made my transition much easier. Now I'll also say that I am still in transition as I'm acting as an advisor to our new CEO, John White,
Hmm.
and helping on a few special projects that I'm passionate about, and the AMA is trying to move forward.
Well, I'm sure Dr. White is happy to have your counsel with all the leadership that you brought there. But let's talk about that transition, because it's one thing to be able to sort of hand over to a competent leader that you have confidence in. That's wonderful. But for you, Lori, so you talked about this as, a very proud moment to end your career. Inspiring women audience, I just want to let you know, when Lori says end her career, I don't believe it. I want to talk a little bit about what next looks like, because you should be proud, as I said. But what does transition mean? How did you prepare yourself for being sort of like the big boss, and now moving to something next? Did you have a plan? Did you, for yourself, not for the team? People always care about their teams and the
Yep.
work, but for yourself in terms of what you're looking forward to.
So, yes and no,
Hmm.
I would say. So, I am it is the time for me. I have not lived in the same state as my husband, as you know, for many years now. And so the big transition for me has been moving back to Colorado and spending time with my family, which I am thoroughly enjoying doing. Now, that said, I'm also in the process of moving my mother
Hmm.
in the next part of her journey uh, to Colorado.
Hmm.
And I find it almost as stressful as my work at the AMA some days, but sorry, mom. Um, but I think that's the next part of my journey is being not a caregiver. She's very competent. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate, but it is the next part of my journey. I have both a mom who I'm going to be caring for, and then I am fortunate to have this new grandbaby
Yeah.
that I am delighted to be spending time with. Now, that said, that's my personal part of the puzzle. I
Mhm.
think there are other obvious pieces to the puzzle
Mhm.
that I was in some ways prepared for and in some ways not.
Mhm.
I would say, I don't know about, I think many women may face this challenge.
Mhm.
I worked all the time at the
Yeah.
AMA,
Yeah.
and I put myself last in most
I
cases.
just want to say, knowing Lori for a lot of years, Lori worked all the time at any organization that she was working for. She is a 7 day a week. It's always on. And if she's not in front of clients, a computer, stakeholders, learning about the industry, she's thinking about it. So she's got her attention in often one place.
Yes, and not on me,
Yeah.
right? And so now is the time that I get to turn that to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so spend the time making sure, figuring out what I want to do next. What am I passionate about? And then how do I use my skills to support those passions?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I'm in transition in that as well.
So let's just like talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the family first, because
Okay.
Lori, for sure, even though you may have never been one to sort of like put the attention on yourself, I want to start with family. I mean, for as long as I've known you, you might have put yourself last, but your family has always been first, and that has been a very, very and consistently important part of your life. So now that you have a grandchild, now that you have a mom who is moving, um, how is that going? And just that, how is the family feeling about having a lot more Lori, in their day to
Yeah.
day?
You'd have to ask my husband. I think he's planning to play more golf, but I think it's going well
Mhm.
actually. So I am and Lori knows both of my children. My daughter is a new mom, and she is, I think, an inspiring woman in her own right.
Yeah, she was.
She's
She's been
been
on the
on
pod. She's been
inspiring
on the
them,
pod.
yes, and she is struggling just like all new moms to give 200%, which,
Mhm.
as we learn, is not actually possible, but
Mm,
but you have to learn that. And
mhm.
so, I hope I can help her with that.
Mhm.
And as she and her husband, do an excellent job of both raising a family and growing their careers. And so I have my son who's newly married.
Mhm.
Um, I'm fortunate to be able to spend some time with he and his wife and help them with some of their projects. And then my mom,
Mhm.
who's an inspiring woman in her own right.
Yep.
She just finished her term as the chairman of the board of the North County Hospice at 88 years old. So, I am busy with
Uh-huh.
those things, and I feel very full with those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know you've been looking forward to even
Mhm.
having more time and being in the same location. I want to talk a little bit about sort of like the transition and just professionally, because I
Yeah.
think that many women with senior executive careers, as you have had for so many years, there's lots of places to put that knowledge and energy. And so, if you were just to, want things to show up in your lap, what would be interesting to you to take you away from this new time that you have, at home with
Mhm.
family, moving your mom with grandchildren? Like, what are things that still interest you? What excite you to learn about? Or do you just want to step back and take a break? Or do you not know yet?
So,
A lot in that
there's a
question.
lot in that question. So, we'll be here tomorrow still answering that question. So, look, I've spent a lot of time in a variety of board meetings.
Hmm.
I When you work in, private equity private equity backed companies, you spend time in board meetings. When you are with big corporations, you spend time with board meetings. And when you're at the AMA, I spent a lot of time in board meetings. And um, but on the staff side of the fence.
Hmm.
And so, I do believe that I have expertise and knowledge that would
Hmm.
be helpful on the other side of that governance process. I've
Hmm.
learned an awful lot, seen an awful lot, and would like to give back in that way. And
Hmm.
so, I do think that that is, one of the ways that I will seek to fill my time, finding things that are interesting and that I am inspired by, and areas that and places that I can help.
Well, there are some areas that you're already helping in, and I wanted to actually talk about, an organization that's very important to both of us,
Yes.
and that's women business
Yep.
leaders. And you introduced me to women business leaders years ago, and I've been very involved with that organization since because of your leadership and your commitment, Lori, to helping to advance women, the next generation, as well as understanding the importance of having a network of professional women who can support you in the good times, in the rough times, and when you need some help. So, can you just like talk about that? Because I think, many women today know that having a network matters and networking always is very important to them professionally. But you were always very clear that having a professional network of senior women executives is particularly important. Just talk about that, why that was so important to you and what you've been doing with that organization.
And I do, as you know, I do believe that to be the case. And I actually think that now is the time for me to be able to give back even more to that organization. I actually nominated 2 people in the last 2 weeks,
Mhm,
to join the organization. So I think that, when the organization has some kind of principles, and one of them is who mentors the mentors.
mhm,
And I think it's a really good question
mhm,
because sometimes there's no one to talk to.
mhm,
Um, and you have to find those people to help you, as you said, through the good times and the bad times in your personal life as it relates to your work and in your work. How do you deal with juggling all the things we juggle?
mhm,
Uh, and finding the voice and the confidence is important.
mhm,
As you know, that is not one of my assets. Is not. I do not advocate for myself as well as I should, and it's a lesson I have learned over time and continue to work on. So, what WBL is an organization I'm passionate about and committed to, as you are, and a part of my go forward that I believe it's time for me to give back in even a more meaningful way than I have been able to in the past. And I continue to try and cultivate that network. I actually nominated 2 people over the last 2 weeks to join, both of whom who were accepted and joined, I'm happy to say. And so one of
What
the tenets of WBL is who mentors the mentors? And I think that's such a relevant and good question because it can be lonely
Uh-huh,
and you need someone to talk to, and it's hard to find sometimes. So
mhm,
I think having this network of senior women that create a safe space
mhm.
to grow and learn is just really helpful. It's helpful professionally, it's helpful to your soul,
Mhm,
and it's helpful to others.
mhm. Lori, can you just, as we close out this inspiring women conversation, just on that particular thing, it is not my closing question, but over those years being involved with a professional network
Mhm.
like WBL, what what was like a piece of advice that helped you? You would think you're not a senior leader that needs advice. Seems like you've got it all figured out. You know what you're doing. You seem very confident. You're competent. You've accomplished a tremendous amount. But what advice along those years was particularly helpful to you?
Ask for it.
Mhm,
That was one of the things the organization shared with me early on, actually gave me a book called Ask For It. I've given that book to many young women.
mhm.
And it's not something we do sometimes as well as we should. So I would say that was one of the key pieces of advice that they gave me.
Yep, and also as you talked about, and it's something that you don't learn just like on the job. You have to continue to hone that skill as you go along. Lori, this has been a bit of a fun little bit of memory lane, in some ways, just as you bring back for me, just my own fond memories of working at the association. And congratulations to you on all that you've further accomplished and teeing up the association for continued long-term success and helping the industry. But as we close out this inspiring women conversation, you're in a chapter of looking to next.
Mhm.
And so maybe if you could just close us with your advice to younger women, your own daughter, my daughter, other young professionals that we know are up and coming, and what would you say to them so they too can have the level of impact that you've had over your years working in the space of healthcare?
So I would say ask for it.
Mhm.
Um, be confident. Talk less and listen more. Those words, when you speak them, make sure they are the impactful words said at the right time so that people hear them.
Mm.
And I would say learn your superpowers. Understand what your superpowers are and what your weaknesses are, and exploit those superpowers and backstop the weaknesses. And don't be shy about it. We all have weaknesses. So get help, make friends, but know those two things and use them to be confident and be successful. Don't be shy. It's very hard for some of us um to talk about ourselves. It's hard for us to advocate for ourselves. So part of a network is creating others to advocate for you, and not being shy about doing that.
Lori, I am so happy that you agreed to be on Inspiring Women. This has been a really fun conversation. Lori, thank you so much.
Thank you.